Get started. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's well on this lovely sunny day. Thank you for joining us today with such wonderful weather. We've had a fantastic response to the swimming webinar. We've got over 70 people, 70 schools who've shown interest, which is fabulous, and about 20-30 schools who sadly can't join us today, but we are recording it. So you'll be able to view the webinar after all for those teachers or staff who can't attend. So thank you for coming on board. Some basic housekeeping, guys. If you could just keep your cameras off and on mute as well. There will be opportunities to talk during the breakout sessions and obviously come off mute when that takes place. That'll be fabulous. If you have any questions throughout, then the chat box that most of you are now familiar with after 12 months of Zooming and Teams, I think we're all familiar with the chat box. So any questions throughout, then please add to the chat box. Without further ado, then I'll hand over to Ian. Ian has kindly agreed to deliver the webinar today. Ian's a PE advisor, is an AFPE presenter and consultant, and is a Swim England as well consultant. So we're very honoured to have Ian join us today to deliver the workshop. So I'll hand over to Ian. Thank you very much, Ian, for joining us, and I hope you all enjoy the webinar this evening. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thank you Jane. Yeah, so as Jane said, my name is Ian Roberts. I'm the local authority PE advisor in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, so that's my day job. But I also do a huge amount of work for AFPE. I recently did some consultancy for the Department of Education about preparing the swimming landscape for the sort of post-COVID world. And I feel quite privileged to be coming over and doing this webinar for you guys this afternoon. So let's move on. So I can get my slides working. So very quickly, before we move on, I just want to share with you what my plans are for this afternoon. And this is what I aspire for the outcomes to be. So the first thing is, I just want to help you, support you in promoting a healthy and safe environment in and around the swimming pool when children are swimming in the very near future. The second thing is we need to look at what is swimming and water safety. What does it actually mean? Because if you look at the national curriculum, it doesn't say swimming, it says swimming and water safety. And it's not just being able to swim 25 meters and collecting a rainbow badge. The third thing I want to do is just explain to you or tell you a little bit more about what we call the Learn to Swim framework. Then I also want to just go through with you what we call the core aquatic skills. So you'll be very familiar with the fundamental movement skills of primary PE, but the core aquatic skills are the sort of the wet version of your fundamental movement skills. And we just need to spend a little bit of time looking at the strokes, because ultimately that's what gets children from one side of the pool to the other. So that's what I want our outcomes to be at the end of this workshop. So first things I want to share with you is the roadmap. So you'll be very familiar with the roadmaps that people keep talking about. Mr. Johnson keeps referring to roadmaps, and Gavin Williamson keeps referring to roadmaps, and Sport England keeps referring to roadmaps. So this is the swimming roadmap that has been in place since early March. So from 8th of March, school swimming was able to be resumed, and some schools I know were delivering swimming. Swimming is a part of the national curriculum for PE. PE is a statutory entitlement for all children. Swimming is a statutory part of that curriculum. So there is no excuse for not swimming. From 29th of March, which is yesterday, or this week, sorry, outdoor swimming pools can reopen. And I saw the news yesterday with lots of people out there swimming for the first time for months. And then when the children come back and you're back after the Easter holidays, indoor pools can be reopened. And after step 3 on the 17th of May, indoor organised adult sport will be allowed. And basically it will almost be back to normal in swimming pools. What I keep reminding schools when they're trying to tell me that they're not going to swim, it's too dangerous, all this, swimming is potentially, and I say this slightly with tongue in cheek, it's potentially the safest environment children can be in the moment in the COVID landscape, because basically they are swimming or they're splashing about in a tank of disinfectant. Chlorinated water mitigates against 99.9999 recurring % of transmission of COVID. They could not be in a safer environment than in that water. The challenge is managing the outside of it, the pool side, the changing rooms and all the rest of it. but swimming as an activity is so safe. There has not been a single example in the whole of the UK. In fact, I believe it's the world where somebody has caught COVID in a swimming pool environment. And we must not lose sight of that. We've got to do everything we can to get children swimming because of this. And this is from what we call the Active Life survey that is done on an annual basis. So Sport England did a survey of children's activities levels. And I'm not going to read out the entire thing. I'm just going to encourage you to just look through the headlines yourself, and I'll pick out 1 or 2 headlines to share with you. The most prominent is that only 19% of children met the chief medical officer's recommended 60 minutes of daily physical activity during lockdown. 7% of children did no physical activity at all during lockdown. And this was in January. This is before the most recent lockdown. My big worry with regard to swimming, which is why I'm so grateful that I've been asked to come over and deliver this webinar, is the fact that young people, in many cases, have not swum for 2 years. Many young people have not been into a tank of water or a body of water for 2 years. And we can only think about what the potential consequences of that might be if we don't get this sorted, if we don't prioritize swimming, if we don't jump over those hurdles that have been put in their place by people who are saying, oh no, it's too safe, we shouldn't be swimming, it's too dangerous and everything else. We've got to get kids back in the water. Swimming is a life skill. Swimming, it's a question of actually keeping children alive in many respects, because I know in the West Midlands, in Birmingham, you've got a huge amount of water. I work in Cambridgeshire, we've got water everywhere. We've got the fens, we've got rivers, we've got lakes, we've got canals, we've got gravel pits. It's a very dangerous environment. Children are never more than a mile away from water anywhere in the UK, and we've got this big push at the moment for staycations. Children will be bored in the summer. We've got to make sure our children are safe if they're in or around water. We've got to prioritize this. So I'm going to ask us to use the chat box. A parent comes to you and they request that their child is withdrawn from swimming because they can already swim. So this is to get you thinking already, because I'm not going to do all the talking in the next hour and a half. I want you to use the chat box, and I want you to write have a think about it first. Don't just randomly say the first thing that comes to your head. A parent has told you, because this happens a lot. They say, I don't want my daughter swimming in year 6 swimming lessons because she's already got a 25-meter rainbow badge. She doesn't need to do swimming. I want you to think about, what would your answer be? I'm going to give you 4 minutes, and let's see what sort of things we get up in our chat box. And I'm hoping that Jane will keep an eye on things as people are writing. And this is the challenge now, is who's going to go first. Survival, well done, Heidi. Heidi's led us off with survival skills. Good. Developing further skills, nothing wrong with them becoming more confident. This is good now, it's getting too fast for me to keep up. Good. Chance to excel, consolidation, it's a life skill. Okay, good. Turns and dives. It's not just about learning swimming, it's the general physical activity, leader, sociable situations. Good. I did this last week with a head teacher wrote that basically, so a child can do maths. Does that mean they can add up? They don't have to do maths lessons anymore. In fact, I think someone's just written that. Oh, yeah. Good timing there, Andrew. I was just thinking exactly the same thing. So if a child can already do maths, they don't have to stop attending maths lessons. It's a statutory entitlement, okay? But it's not just as simple as that. As I've said, children haven't swum for 2 years. It's not just being able to swim for 25 meters. And it looks like somebody is just thinking along the same lines as me. I'm going to scroll up. So yeah, whoever 8156396 blah 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 is, they've said we cover more than basic swimming, developing strokes and stamina. Safety is a huge aspect of what is taught. It's potentially stop her having, also you want potentially stop her from having fun with her friends. So we've got that issue of integration. Absolutely. 30 seconds more. 25 meters is not enough. That's a really good point from Jane. I've always got this worry that a child might fall off a boat and they're 50 meters from shore. They can swim 25 meters and then they can go no further, but they've done their national curriculum bit. It's not an objective process. I genuinely believe they should not have put 25 meters in that in those outcomes. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm going to close the chat, but there's some really good contributions there, and I really do think I couldn't put it better than some of the things that you've written. So this is the official answer. And I'll just, again, you read it through and I'll pick out the headlines in 30 seconds when you've had a quick read. The most important thing is a partnership, and that third paragraph is vital. Schools and parents must discuss their concerns they may have about pupils' participation. The national curriculums or outcomes are minimum requirements, and national curriculum for PE is a holistic process. We want children to do more than just the physical, and that's why it's so important. But I'll go through in a few more details, and I think most of it you've summed up in your chat box. But the key thing is, it's not a need to do. It's not a nice to do. It's a need to do. It's an essential part of their curriculum. So swimming lessons are important. School swimming is often the one and only opportunity for all children to learn to swim together and know how to be safe in and around water. So just because they've done their rainbow badge in their Sunday morning swimming school, and I've got 2 children here and they've both been to lessons on Sunday mornings, they get their badges. And I've seen children being given badges when they basically doggy paddled the last 9 meters of the length. And that's not good enough. That's not national curriculum swimming. It's swimming and water safety. It's not just swimming 25 meters. It's really important that we recognize it's likely that children who don't learn to swim during school lessons, they'll never learn this life-saving skill. Okay, it's being safe in and around water, being safe in and around water with your colleagues and your friends. The ability to swim is an essential life skill, and the knowledge of the safety in and around water can contribute to the overall safety of young people. And my reservation, when my children have gone to Sunday morning swimming lessons, they've not learnt about the safety in and around water. They've simply got in and been taught the technicalities of how to swim a stroke. And it's really important that it's more, that's why we call it swimming and water safety. It's not just swimming. And this is really, really important to us. And obviously, I work in Cambridge and Peterborough, and despite the rumours, it's not all posh people and punting. We've got some genuine deprivation in Cambridgeshire, particularly around the north part of the city of Cambridge, and also around Fenland, where there's genuine poverty, if that's the right word to use. I can't speak about Birmingham, but I do have some experience of Birmingham because my family or my father's lived in the West Midlands. And whether this applies to Birmingham or not is down to your perception, but it says 77% of all children can swim the minimum of 25 meters by the time they leave primary school. So that's 3/4 of kids can swim. But that's a very general, generic statement. That figure drops to 42% for children from the least affluent families and 86% for the most affluent. So you may well have children who are at the top end of that continuum, who are very affluent, but you may well also have children who have not been in a body of water, will never go in a body of water unless it's in their school swimming lesson. And that's really, really important. So the national curriculum. You'll be very familiar with what the national curriculum is saying. All schools must provide swimming for Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2, but it has to be provided in primary school. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have, and it's essential. It's statutory entitlement. And we've got 3 outcomes that you must evidence against, you must report against. So we want children who are safe in water, they can perform self-rescues. We want children who can swim 25 meters, and we want children who can swim a range of strokes. And I just want to share with you the first one. So the first one is around the safe self-rescue. And this video is quite powerful, and it puts it into perspective how important swimming lessons are. If it works, let's see if I can get rid of my black boxes.
Me and my dad went to the water and then we accidentally went too far.
He's keep asking, daddy help, and I could do nothing.
After, I was thinking that this is the end of my life. Is it really happening?
If any accident happen, suddenly happen, and that day he's slowly going to die on front of my eye.
Sometimes I was shouting, but then my throat got dry, so then I stopped.
We were coming back north along the shoreline, and I just spotted a glimpse of his red t-shirt in the water, and we were just so relieved when we saw him breathing and actually asking for help, because you never know what we might find with that amount of time in the water.
But if they just float until the cold water shock has passed,
It's basically on your back whilst you're being a starfish.
The little boy, he was floating on his back, doing exactly the right thing, float to live, with his arms spread out, exactly right, not panicking. He was obviously very cold and scared, and you know, I reassured him. His first words to me was, "I want to see my parents."
I was like, yay, they finally came to get me, and now I've got a second chance to live.
I think it takes a special type of person to actually, you know, pluck up that courage and remember what he'd learned. I mean, and it's an inspiration to us all.
When our children going to die in front of our eye, how we feel. He got a second life.
They're your heroes.
Yes.
So I wanted to share that video with you because that is what water safety is all about. And that is a crucial element of what you will be teaching your children in your swimming lessons, is how to survive should, heaven forbid, things go wrong. And one horrific statistic, I want to share two statistics with you. And I do apologize, but the first one is that over 3/4 of accidental drownings in young people happen within 5 feet of safety. So that effectively means that the children have been able to get to the side, but they can't get out. That safe self-rescue is so important. And the second one is that on holidays where we've had accidental drownings, the vast majority of accidental drownings on holidays happen within the first hour or the last hour of the holiday. And that's where parents have taken their eye off the ball. And I'm a parent, and I'm sure I've taken my eye off the ball at that time because I'm packing the car, or I'm unpacking the car, or I'm sorting things out. That's when children are distracted. It's vital that this is the most important of those three outcomes. So when that parent comes to you and says, my daughter can do 25 meters, that's great. They've got their rainbow badge, but I want my children to be able to perform safe self-rescue in different water-based situations. That is the priority. That's where it starts. And even if this summer you are unable to get your swimming lessons as robust and as rigorous as they would be in normal years, if you can get any swimming done at all, this has to be the priority, because this will save lives this summer. I genuinely believe that. So the second outcome is around swimming confident and proficiently over a distance of 25 meters. And the second bullet point there is really important. That's where I've seen those children in those swimming lessons on a Sunday morning, where they get their swimming badge given to them because they've paid such a large amount of money for their swimming lessons. Strokes are as strong at the end of the swim as at the start. And I've seen children who are basically doggy paddling for the last third of the length, or the two lengths they're doing. Part of the swim should also be completed in deep water, and the strokes should be recognizable to an informed onlooker. This is important. So sometimes, and I'm being slightly over the top about this, those rainbow badges those children are being presented with and being used as a justification for not doing the swimming lessons with you, they're not as robust as your swimming lessons in school are. And the third outcome is they should be able to use a range of strokes. Pupils can make choices about the strokes they use to achieve different outcomes. So they can use alternating and simultaneous strokes. They can do front crawl, they can do backstroke, they can do breaststroke. They may well even be able to do butterfly. But they should be able to swim and demonstrate a range of strokes. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to be effective, and they need to be recognizable. So those three outcomes have got to be assessed and they've got to be reported on by all primary schools alongside the PE premium money that you have to report on at the end of July. But I must emphasize that first outcome, the water safety bit, is the priority, has to be the priority. Okay, so this is a summary for that bit. You need to have regular lessons to build up that technical ability and proficiency. You need to build up school swimming lesson safety as well. So you got safe. So that little girl, she's had her regular swim lessons in the dark blue circle. That will be complementing what she does in her school lessons, and then she'll become a great swimmer. The blue circle, the dark blue circle on its own is not enough for national curriculum swimming. So it's all built upon good teaching principles. So when you get your lessons going, this is where I think we need to start with. So we know what we need to do. We have a justification. We have a rationale for our swimming lessons. Now we need to think about what makes a good swimming lesson. And these are really important to us. So I'll let you just have a quick look through. Jane, we've had one person who said they can't hear anything.
Yeah, we'll look into that. Thanks, Ian.
As long as you can hear me. Okay.
Yep, it's all okay.
So the good technical knowledge is the most important one. It's the basic principle of all good teaching, all PE lessons, all English lessons, all maths lessons, good technical knowledge. You need to know your subject. But moving down, acknowledgement of the importance of basic safety skills. And that moves on to the next slide. When you take people swimming for the first time, there's three principal parts of your planning. The first one, you need to make sure your safety procedures permeate all aspects of planning. Safety is the most important part of any swimming lesson. It's a very, very risky environment. The second one, that will be reflected in the organization of your kids in all parts of it. The teaching space includes the changing rooms. And the third one, all equipment being used should be readily available. You need to plan in advance what equipment you'll be using, and don't just dump it along the poolside. And I've seen some really cluttered poolsides in my time. So that key technical knowledge. And I want to share with you what we call the core aquatic skills. You'll be familiar in primary school PE with what we call fundamental movement skills, the agility, the balance, the coordination, the running, the jumping, the throwing, the kicking, the catching, the striking, and all the rest of it. Well, we've actually got the 9 key core aquatic skills, and you can see them around the outside of the diagram on the right-hand side. They are the building blocks that everything is built upon in swimming lessons, and that's what I'm going to spend the bulk of this webinar talking about. So they're the sport-specific skills that all children and all swimmers learn. So if you look at the Olympic swimmers, they will have started with the same basic principles. And the most important part is the bottom line. These have got to be taught in a fun way. Okay, the reason I've shared that video with you, it's not a marketing spiel for Swim England, but I would encourage you to use maybe part of your PE premium in your schools to look at the Swim England charter mark, or to become a charter school, because they've got a huge amount of, a huge raft of resources that you could access. And I can't remember how expensive it is. It's very, very cheap for what it is. And one of the most important parts of it is called the Learn to Swim framework. And I want to share with you some elements of that Learn to Swim framework here. But it's a really good resource. And I'm saying that genuinely. I would encourage you to check it out. Now, one of the people, I can't remember who it said, I think somebody said in the chat box, will this slides be shared? Yes, they will. I'm going to be sending all the resources over to Jane. And that will include some information about the Swim England resources as well. And I just wanted to share that video with you because they're the National Association for Teaching of Swimming in this country. So going back to the fundamental movement skills and the core aquatic skills, we've got these core aquatic skills around the outside. And as you can see, there are 8 core aquatic skills around the Learn to Swim pathway. And this underpins all aspects of swimming. It's a really, really vital process. So entries and exits are where we start. We need to make sure that children are taught and experience buoyancy and balance, rotation, orientation, streamlining, aquatic breathing, travel and coordination. That's the strokes part of it, and water safety. They are the 8 fundamental core aquatic skills. They're the building blocks upon which we teach swimming. And it's a really good way of framing everything. Something just appeared in the chat box, bear with me. Somebody's asked me, what's my view on swim teachers in the water? I would, particularly with young children, I think at the moment you can't do that because of COVID, but when we get something close to normality, I don't have an issue with teachers being in the water. I think sometimes, particularly very weak and very inexperienced swimmers, they do need a grown-up or an adult near them, helping support. We need to make sure that everything's in line with robust safeguarding protocols. But I think sometimes that's the most effective way of teaching children to swim, is having an adult in the water with them, particularly with very young, very inexperienced swimmers. So the first thing we need to talk about is the core aquatic skills. I've mentioned that. They're the building blocks. It's important we teach them in a fun way. So I'm going to ask you to use the chat box again. And in small groups, this is the question. So forget small groups. That's what I sometimes do if you're sitting at tables. You've got a new group of non-swimmers and you've covered all the health and safety issues, so they know they're not allowed to run on the side and they've got to do this and they've got to do that and they know what to do if the whistle blows. We've done all the safety issues and the health and safety. The question I want you to discuss, what are the first 3 things that you would want all participants to be able to do when they're in the water? When they're not in the water, but when they're going to be getting in the water. There's 3 basic things which are the most important things that children must be able to do by the end of that first lesson, the end of the first couple of lessons. So use the chat box. I'll give you 3 minutes to see what you can come up with. The 3 most important things that you want children to be able to do in or very close to their first ever swimming lessons with you. Use the chat box. So confidence to get in the water, being confident in the water. These are, I like that one, getting out of the water, good. Anything else? Treading water, having fun, safely entering, watering face, taking the feet off the bottom, good. Sometimes actually we're getting onto the next one along, so we're moving through the water. I want to think about the 3 most important things. Remember what I said about the fact that over 3/4 of people who accidentally or have accidental drownings, it happens when they can't, within 5 feet of safety. That's because they can't get out. Entries and exits, nailed it, good. There's 2 of them. Good, I'm going to close the chat box now. Excellent, good, good. There's some really good ones there. I'm going to come back to these in a few minutes anyway. So these are mine. Being able to get in and out of the water safety. Quite a number of you wrote that. You wrote it in different ways, exits and entries and all the rest of it. It's absolutely vital the children are going to enter the water and they can get out of the water. They need to be able to move around the pool with their feet on the bottom. Okay, so they need to know where the bottom is. And I've seen lessons where I've seen children in swimming pools for their first ever lesson. And for a lot of children, they've never been in a body of water before. And I went to investigate an incident in a swimming pool several years ago now, where out of a class of 25 year threes, 23 had never been in a body of water because they lived in flats and cluster homes where they only had a shower. So they hadn't even been in a bath. So to go into a swimming pool for them, it was like going into the Atlantic Ocean. So those children, when they were in the pool, they were really feeling the way around with their feet. They were very, very close, if not beyond their comfort zone. And the third one, they need to be comfortable with the water on their face. They are the three most important things that children need to be taught or need to engage or embrace in their first ever experiences of a swimming pool. They need to be able to get in, they need to be able to get out, they need to be able to move around with their feet on the bottom, and they need to be able to be comfortable with their water on the face. We don't need to worry about strokes yet. We don't need to worry about treading water or anything else. At the moment, these are the three fundamental parts or the three simplest parts of the core aquatic skills. So the next question is, what methods might you use? What are the advantages? Don't worry about the second one. You, again, use the chat box. What sort of ways would you encourage children to get into the water on their first ever experiences of swimming lessons or swimming and water safety lessons? So what methods might you use when you're talking about children entering the water for their first few lessons? Let's see what we go. Sitting and sliding in, I like that. Sit on the side and slide in. Feeling water on the feet, good, Nicole. Ladder entry using the steps. Clear, specific instructions how to get into the water, that's really important. Sit on the side and kick the water. A beach entrance, use steps one at a time. Good. Excellent. Good. So I'm going to close the chat box for the minute. So not everyone will and can enter the exit the pool easily. Some children, it just comes so easily. Some children, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So the skills we need to be taught, exactly what you had in your chat box entries. They need to walk into the water. They need to be able to use steps. They need to be able to use ladders. They need to be able to sit and turn. They need to be able to jump into the water. Obviously, you need to manage that carefully, but that's a really important aspect of in a controlled way in your lessons. But entries and exits is an absolute vital core aquatic skill that is sadly overlooked in many cases. People just assume that can happen. It doesn't just happen. It's vital, vital skill and technique. Okay. So the next thing, they can move around the pool. We get them hopping. We can walk holding onto the side. We can do all these things through activities and games. And I would encourage you to try and do these things in as fun and as engaging way as you possibly can. Okay, just have a quick look through.
Moving can be as simple as walking, hopping, skipping or jumping in shallow water. The pupil should experience a variety of aids, water depths, toys and games to achieve this outcome. A support teacher in the water can be used at this stage and can be seen here giving encouragement, but the child is nonetheless achieving this outcome of moving forward. With a group in deep water, appropriate buoyancy aids are used. This gives the pupils the opportunity to explore and discover how they can control their body position while still achieving the desired outcome. In summary, moving can be done in a variety of ways in deep or shallow water, and with or without aids and support as appropriate. A support teacher can be used to help when necessary.
So there was quite a simple video that just showed you everything can be done in a really fun way. So and I'm going to set you a question. So, but before we do that, I'm always wary of breakout rooms because people go in and they don't say anything, or they want to say something, but they don't have the confidence. And this is a reminder to you. Everybody you ever meet knows something you don't. There's a huge amount of expertise. I would encourage you to go to your breakout room. Okay. Oh. So what I want you to do in your breakout room is I want you to discuss what activities you might use to help the pupils to become comfortable with water on their face. So I want you to discuss in your breakout rooms the games, the activities that you can do to help children to become happier with getting their faces wet. That is the key objective. They can already move around. We're happy with that. They can hop, they can jump, they can splash and all the rest of it. But we now need them to get their faces wet. 4 minutes. What activities could you use to get children? Okay, Jane, are you going to help me put them into, or has it been set up?
Yeah, I'm just doing it now, Ian. So
Right,
give me 1 second.
I was worried about I thought my Zoom was crashing there at one point.
5 minutes, Ian, is that correct?
Yeah, 4 or 5 minutes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, everyone should be moving into a room just about now. Yeah, that looks to be everyone in. So I've got 9 rooms, Ian.
Okay, sounds good.
So yeah, there's 7, I think, in most rooms. Six in a few.
Does it all make sense so far?
Yeah, all perfect so far. Yeah, and obviously there's been a few in the a few questions in the chat which you've covered anyway, and I think we'll do that as we go along. So yeah, so no, that those will automatically close in another 4 minutes. But if you want me to sort of send a message, I can do to them, but they should all have it.
It's okay.
Fairly well.
hi, everybody. We seem to be coming back. James, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, can you hear
My
you?
Zoom crashed there. I had to log back out and log back in again.
Okay,
Is
no,
everyone
that's
back in?
fine. Yeah, everyone should be back in now.
Yeah. Okay, just while people are coming back in, there's a question here about, just wanted to clarify, are school swimming lessons allowed to start if we go to an indoor pool? Yes, the simple answer is yes. If it's curriculum swimming, you can deliver swimming, it can be delivered in an indoor pool. And there are 1 or 2 examples of where leisure centres have only been open for curriculum swimming lessons, nothing else. So yes, because it's part of the curriculum and because it's a statutory part of the curriculum, yes, you can. Right, can the children use changing rooms? I've heard conflicting views. Right, changing rooms. I might need to ask some more advice and maybe share this with Jane, but the changing room issue is around, we try and get children to arrive beach ready, so you can get children through the changing room as quickly as possible. They need to be cleaned afterwards. But yeah, wherever you take children swimming, they need to, you need to talk to them about the risk assessment. The guidance on parents who refuse for their children to attend swimming. It's a national curriculum subject, so we need to be sensitive to the parents' requests, but they should be swimming. And it's go back to that original question I asked about what would you do and the advice I gave. Right, how does it work with transport in terms of social distancing or other schools using the coach? I'll put all this information into the information I share with Jane at the end, because it's part of the school trips guidance that the government has given. Okay, so we could talk about transport and changing rooms all day. So I'm going to leave that, if that's okay with everybody, and I'll come back and share that later. Okay, thank you. Right, good. So you've been away and you've discussed how children what you can do to get the children's faces wet. So I'm not going to ask people to call out or use the chat box, because your conversations would have been very good and you would have come up with some really good examples, but I will share with you a couple of ones I've got. So first thing is just getting children splashing water on their faces. Different parts of the head go to the water, different parts of the face go to the water. We can get children to put their ears in the water, their noses in the water. We get them to wash their face, so they're taking water to the face. So we just get them to imagine they're washing their face in the swimming pool, where their faces and their hands are underneath the water. We could pour water over their head using things like little watering cans and little buckets. We get them to blow bubbles with their mouth at the water. They can be a motorbike or a motorboat. We get them to blow ping pong balls across the water. You've got egg flips. You may be familiar with an egg flip. It looks like a flying saucer. So it's like a ping pong ball with and it looks almost a flying saucer or Saturn, where it's got a ring around it. And we're trying to get them to flip over. So if they're doing it properly, it will flip over, and it often has some of them are the really good ones have got little cartoon characters on them and all the rest of it. Walking with their face in the water, looking at the pool floor. There's loads of really good things we can do to get children to get their faces wet. And one of the resources I'm going to share with Jane at the end of the session is this. You'll be familiar with Change for Life. Change for Life is a package that's been produced nationally to engage the disengaged, to get the disengaged involved in physical activity. Well, they've actually produced some really lovely Swim for Life resources, and these are aimed at families, but I think they are perfect for schools. And I will share this resource, and there's just 2 examples of the sorts of games you can play. So we've got underwater humming, we've got the mirror game. There's all sorts of really lovely games aimed at families, but perfect for swimming lessons in schools. Okay.
The teacher is looking for confidence in the execution of this basic skill of washing the face. Pupils should be encouraged to scoop the water in their hands and wash their face. The pupils should appear relaxed and at ease throughout the activity. Many pools have water features that can be used for this outcome. The pupils should be able to move confidently through the flowing water without fuss or distress. Simple watering cans can be used by the teacher to pour water over the pupil's face and head to get their faces wet. The swimmer should show an ability to blink and blow the water clear of the face with confidence.
A really lovely little short video which shows you the sorts of things that you can do, and you'll have hundreds of ideas, but we've got to make it fun. So, and that's all part of being able to get children to breathe in water. Swimmers need to be comfortable with water around their faces and in their mouths. They need to develop breathing skills, blowing bubbles. This is real vital for them to become successful swimmers later on in their swimming lives. So just have a quick read through that. So the next question, I'm going to ask you to use the chat box. Why is it important to be able to regain the standing position? So we've got children who can move around. We've got children who can take their feet off the bottom. We've got children who can get their faces wet, and they're happy getting their faces wet. Very simple question. Be able to regain standing if they were to lose, if they lift their feet off the bottom and they lose their bearings. So let's see if we can use the chat box and see what you can share with me. Jane, can you hear me at the moment?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
I can hear
Yeah,
you.
just that I keep getting it all goes fuzzy on my screen. I keep losing Zoom, and I don't know it's worrying me.
No, it's all good, Ian. Every now and then you cut out for a couple of seconds, but it's
Quite good.
generally okay.
Yeah. I can't see the chat box. It's not showing up on my screen. Has anybody come up with some ideas of the sort of things?
Yeah, so people are generally put in to make sure they stay in control, to feel controlled, getting their balance right, avoiding panicking. Yeah, it's been a lot come through. Yeah, a lot of similar ones. Avoiding panic. Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I can't add to that really. The important thing is that being relaxed in the water, and that's why. So we're being at home in the water. So the children need to be able to vary their shapes for floating. We get children to work in pairs. They can make group floats. They can make alphabet floats. They try and make letters. We want them to be able to move from shape to shape. And we want them, that will eventually develop into what we call the push and glide, where we push from the floor, we push from the side, we push on their front, we push on their back, and they hold the streamline position. So it's all building up. So these core aquatic skills are totally embedded, which is, if you go back to the very beginning, when I first shared that on the first slide, it was a Venn diagram. They overlap. And then we start to introduce kicking on the front and the back with and without support. So it's absolutely vital that we go through this protocol. It's not just a simple question of just getting the 25-meter rainbow badge. And buoyancy and balance are absolutely vital to this process. We want our children who can float in different ways. They can float on the back, they float in the front, they can float in a tuck shape. They have different shapes. They link shapes in pairs and groups. It's important safety skills. And as you saw from the little video of the little boy who got caught in a current off the coast near Scarborough, where he suddenly found himself half a mile off the shore and was rescued, they found the little boy in that star shape because he'd heard it on the TV. But he heard it on the TV, but there's a good chance, if it's taught well, he could have learnt it in a PE lesson, in a swimming lesson. This is why buoyancy and balance are a core aquatic skill. They are vital to this entire process. Okay. I think this video is silent anyway, so I'm going to scroll back. And that would build into what we call rotation orientation. So we've got children who can get into the shapes, but we want children who can also, they can stay on their back, they can go into their front, they can regain their standing in a simple, streamlined, flowing motion. They can do forward rolls in the water. They can do backward rolls in the water. We want children who can do handstands. We want children who can surface dive. They can go to the bottom. They can pick things off the bottom. They can go down feet first, or they go down head first. And they need to know where and which way up they are all the time. That orientation is absolutely vital. And I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, because I think
Is everything okay, Ian?
I think we may have lost him, Jane. If this happened during the breakout room, he'll probably jump back into the waiting room in a second.
All right. Sorry, everyone. Just bear with us while we try and get Ian back. Thank you.
Just while we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Yeah, that's fine, guys. I've just rang Ian. He doesn't realise we've lost him, so he's going to try hopefully come back on. So apologies for the delay. Yeah, please go ahead if we can answer the question. If not, we'll wait for Ian to answer. But yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, similar to one or two of the questions on the chat, is one thing that I'd really love to get out from this webinar is just to go back to school leaders and say, yes or no, we can take children swimming, we're allowed to take them on coaches, that sort of thing. I'm really sorry if I've missed it and it's been explained already, but is there sort of clear guidance? I'm looking online and it seems really confusing at different places.
Okay, no, that's fine. We will ask Ian. Oh, here we go. He's coming back in again. We'll ask him as he comes back in. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ian, welcome back.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
No, that's okay. We had a bit of a panic then. We've had a couple of questions. So do you mind if I just put them to you? I know you're probably just going to carry on.
I'm going to put my screen back on, but yeah.
Yeah, as you're sorting yourself out, we've had a couple of questions in the chat box about showers and use of showers, if you wouldn't mind covering that. And also we've just had a question about swimming and using coaches as in transport. Those kind of, is it safe to take them basically? So if you wouldn't mind just covering those, that'd be great.
Going back to, I'll just open the chat box so I can see what, all right, they're not there, I can't see those comments. So what was the first question, Jane?
The first question was around use of the showers at the end of the session. What's your thoughts on that? And the second one is using transport around coaching companies, as Michael's just put on there. Thank you.
I need to take advice about the shower one. I'll put the answer in the resources I share with you, because I don't know the answer on that one. With regard to the transport, that's dictated very much by the government guidance on off-site visits, and so you need to work very closely with the coach companies. Children would hopefully be in bubbles. They should be going to swimming lessons in their bubbles, and so they've been sitting next to their friends in lessons anyway. So it's all related to the children being in bubbles and pods and relating it to off-site activities. and off school and school trips. But again, I can put more comprehensive advice into the resources I share with you after the session. Is that okay?
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Right. I don't know where we were at, and I don't know where you lost me. But what I was saying after the go back. We need to get children who can get their feet back on the bottom. We want them to be able to turn. We want to regain standing. We want them to be able to do different movements. They can rotate forwards and backwards. They can rotate like a sausage or like a log roll in the water. We want children who are confident, who can be inverted. They can go down to retrieve things off the bottom. They go feet first. They can go head first, and they know where they are and which way they are up. So they know they're orientated. These are vital skills. And I think back to an incident, and I said I had to go back and many years ago and investigate an incident in a swimming lesson where I said there was 23 out of 25 children never been in the body of water. What actually happened in that lesson is a little boy, it was reported that he had a near drowning. He didn't actually have a near drowning, but what happened was he was wearing one of these belts that you will have all been familiar with. It was too big for him. He was doing a ping pong ball activity. He was blowing ping pong balls across the water. And he went too far forward, so he over-rotated and found himself upside down. And the belt he was wearing was too big, so it kept him upside down. He was upside down for about 5 seconds. To him, that was a lifetime. And the issue was he didn't know where and which way up he was. That orientation is a vital but taught skill for young people in water, okay? Because he felt it was like being in a washing machine. So I'm going to share this video with you. Hopefully the sound works. Hopefully I don't crash again.
Lie back, tummy up. That's our plate. Captain's coming! Oh, we're gonna add a new one. Captain's girlfriend. Woo woo! We'll do that again, Captain's girlfriend. Bomberland! West! West!
And the good thing about that video is that the children were learning those fundamental core aquatic skills or practicing them in a fun, engaging way. And they were doing them, it was almost being taught by stealth. They were getting into shapes, they were moving across the water, getting faces wet, changing direction, they're upside down, the wrong way up, and all the rest of it through a fun activity. That's the way I think you should be teaching swimming a lot of the time. It needs to be through fun activities. And that leads into the next of our core aquatic skills. That's being streamlined, because streamlining becomes the basis of our strokes. It becomes the way that we move from one part of the water to another. So we need to get children who can get into long, thin, flat body positions. And that comes from activities such as push and glide, on their backs, on their fronts, etc., etc. On their side, they swim to the pool floor, they swim from the pool floor upwards, and it's a key part of all strokes, okay? You have to be streamlined. If you can't be streamlined, then you'll find the strokes are a challenge. And this becomes the basis. So it's a really important core aquatic skills, and we need to have activities that lead into streamlining, and the streamlining goes into our strokes. And that leads into a video, and I don't want to dwell too much on how to teach the strokes, but I want to share this video with you because it gives you an insight into the basics of what the 4 principal strokes are.
Hey guys, and welcome to Simply Swim. There are 4 competitive swimming strokes. These include breaststroke, backstroke, butterfly, and freestyle. We're going to take a look at the different styles so you can find the right one for you. Breaststroke. This basic stroke is great for beginners, making it one of the most popular styles. Your legs and arms perform the same motion, making it much simpler to learn. Your head remains above the water. This gives you fantastic visibility while avoiding breathing issues. More advanced versions of this technique include submerging your head under the water. However, the breaststroke is the slowest and less efficient of all the 4 styles. Backstroke. Backstroke is the next advancement from the breaststroke. Swimming on your back, the legs kick up and down in a flutter movement, while your arms execute alternating movements. Swimming on your back means it's easier to breathe and it's great for long distance swimming. Backstroke is recommended for swimmers with back problems as it works the lower back muscles. It even improves your posture and tightens your core. While starting out, it takes practice finding your balance and to be aware of your surroundings. Butterfly. The butterfly is known as the most unique style. The technique uses a wave-like body undulation to propel yourself through the water. As the stroke requires the legs to move as one, it works out the legs and the bum. This is faster than the previous 2 styles. It also strengthens the core muscles, which are vital to a swimmer's power in the water. However, despite being a fast stroke, it can be tiring and difficult to learn, but it is well worth the effort. Freestyle. The freestyle is swum on the stomach. The feet perform a flutter kick technique as your arms rotate in alternate motion. This is the fastest stroke on this list. That's why it's very popular in swimming competitions. It's also perfect for long distance swimming as it enables you to cover long distances. Like the butterfly, it can be difficult to master. Another issue is that the face is submerged in the water between breaths, but the benefits vastly outweigh the shortcomings. Which is your preferred swimming technique and why? We have tons of swimming tutorials and videos to watch, so don't forget to subscribe. I guess, hey guys,
sorry, I apologize that I was using it's an Australian website, Simply Swim, and it's just a lovely video. I wouldn't encourage you to subscribe to Simply Swim, but I just wanted to share with you. Now, the basics, whenever you're delivering any stroke, the same fundamental principles apply. So this was actually the 7th of the 8 core aquatic skills, being propelled or propulsion through the water. And that's where your stroke's coming in. So few fundamental principles here. The body should be as flat as possible to accommodate the stroke. It's basic mechanics. If a child's head is up when they're swimming, their feet will drop because there's a rotation around the hips. And that's a really important principle. So if ever you see your children are swimming and they're struggling and they've got their heads way out of the water, that's why their feet have sunk. Okay? So the body needs to be as flat as possible to make the stroke happen. So the body position is where we start. That has to be the starting position whenever you're teaching any strokes in swimming. The position of the head influences the body position, as I just said. Strokes are basically floating with the addition of legs and arms. So we started off with the floats. That was why we brought it in quite early. We brought in the streamline shapes because you're basically doing streamlined floats. And now we bring in the strokes. You can't do the strokes if they haven't got into those shapes initially. So it's floating with the addition of legs and arms. We introduce legs before arms, and it's saying I encourage you to use a whole part or a whole approach when you're swimming. So we could swim, and then we isolate the legs or the arms, or we isolate the breathing, we isolate a part of it, and then go back to the whole stroke. It's a really good way, because swimming is really good for breaking the strokes down or breaking the skills down. Okay, so I don't really want to dwell too much on how to deliver the strokes, but a few things just to help you. You'll be familiar with assessment for learning in more generic P lessons, and we need to know what we're looking for. So you'll be familiar with the acronym WILF, what I look for. In swimming, this is what we look for. This is a really good acronym. I don't know how you pronounce that, blabbed, I suppose, but you start with the body. Look at the body. So you see a child in the water, and they're trying to get from the one side to the other, and you can see that something's not quite right. The first thing you focus on is the body. Does the body look right? Address that. Then we do the legs and feet. Then we do the arms. We finish with the breathing and the timing. Those things, that's the progression of what you're looking for. When you're looking, and then you make the interventions as appropriate. And in the resources I share with Jane, I will have some really key, very simply well-written resources for each of those 4 swimming strokes. So basically, if you see a child who's doing front crawl and their body is rolling too much, it will tell you what is possibly causing that infringement of the swimming stroke. And that will help you. So assessment for learning, you'll be familiar with WILF. This is the protocol or the process I would encourage you to follow when you're watching a child swimming. Start with the body, then the legs, then the arms, then the breathing, and finally the timing. And they all, it's a sequential process. I hope that makes some form of sense. And this is another really good process I would encourage you. When you're teaching swimming, use language that makes sense to children. Some people call it spiral organization, some call it abstract reasoning. But rather than using the technical language of a textbook, of a Swim England textbook, or and there's countless other textbooks out there, use language that children will understand. So for example, I've just said there, backstroke. They need to get into a long stretch body, put their head on a pillow. They will understand exactly what you mean. Long legs, splashy toes. It sounds silly, it sounds a little bit trite, but the children will understand it. We don't want naughty knees. So their knees are almost locked. Little finger first. It's obvious. So when they put their hands in the water on backstroke, it's the little finger that goes in first. They will understand that, they'll remember it. An S-shaped pull is how you pull the water back. So they make an S shape in the water as it goes from above their head to down by the hip before it comes out of the water again. Front crawl, same principle. And the bottom one is something I heard in a lesson once in a primary school, and I thought it was perfect. Ear on your shoulder, see the fishy, hear the fishy. And that's the rotation of your head when you're breathing. See the fishy, hear the fishy. See the fishy, hear the fishy. Breaststroke, another one. The third one down was another one I think was in the same lesson, actually, the same teacher. They're encouraging children to go round the pizza and then chop it in half. So that's the arm action of breaststroke. So it's abstract reasoning or spiral organization using language that is meaningful and authentic to children. I hope that makes sense. All these resources will be shared with you after the session. I've just seen that something's popped up. Yeah. So Mr. Brown, yes, you are getting all these slides, I promise. So that leads into the final part, and that's the 8th but most important core aquatic skill, water safety. Now, one of the questions I'm getting asked a lot at the moment is we can't get to a pool, or my head teacher won't let us go to the pool, or we can't get a coach, or we don't think we can do it safely. So our kids can't get wet, but we still want them safe in the summer when it's the summer holidays. So we need to be thinking, how can we teach children the dangers associated with different bodies of water? They need to know where and when it's safe to swim, because that's paramount to safety and enjoying the experiences for the rest of their lives, not just this summer. And we need to be coming up with ideas for classroom-based activities that contribute towards this understanding and help towards achieving the outcomes of the national curriculum. It's swimming and water safety. You can do water safety where you're nowhere near water. And as I said, many activities can be taught through your cross-curricular links with PSHE, as well as during indoor P lessons. So, chat box time again. Hopefully it doesn't crash this time. I want you to share some ideas on the chat box for classroom-based or dryland activities that could contribute towards understanding and help towards achieving the outcomes of national curriculum for swimming. So what sort of things could you do in a classroom or in the hall or on the playground or in school to make sure your children understand the dangers of water? Have a think and see if you can contribute to the chat box. The sorts of things you could do when you can't actually get to the swimming pool, when we're trying to make children safe. Excellent. So we got children being shown different bodies of water. And I know how Birmingham has so many canals. It's unbelievable. Teach the flags. Exactly. Yep. teach them float to live, which obviously you saw in that video at the start. You can do that. You don't need to be in water to teach float to live. They can do that on the gym floor. They can do that on the playground. So child-friendly films, PowerPoints on all aspects of water, especially at the coast. Teaching children to spot the dangers. Any others coming up? Role play in the hall, using a rope. That's a really good one, Fran. So you can actually get children to rescue their friends in the hall, because we want children who will not enter the water. So we can get them to throw a ball to their friend. We can get them to throw a rope to their friend who's somewhere else in the hall. So throwing a football to someone struggling in the water. Getting into the water yourself to rescue someone else, it should be very much the last resort. And responding to the whistle, really good. Are there any others? Okay, so I'm going to close the chat box for a second. And I just want to share with you some resources. And these, again, will be in the resources I share with Jane. So the RLSS, the Royal Life Saving Society, has produced some really good resources. And these are free. So I will share the link. You can go through, and it's got online lessons. It's got presentations you can make to classes. It's presentations you can make in assemblies. It's got a number of cross-curricular water safety resources. It's got lots of activities you can do in the pool, but it's also got lots of activities you can do in a classroom or in the gym. And there's lots of resources around for inclusion and integration around the SEND agenda, or the inclusion agenda. Key Stage 2, we've got resources, interactive spot the danger videos, which somebody's mentioned in the chat box. It's got pool-based games and lesson plans. It's got classroom-based games and lesson plans, and again, it's got SEND resources. So the RLSS is producing some really cutting-edge resources that you can share with your children, or you can, but they are accessible to all schools. You don't have to pay to access these, and I will share the link with Jane that you can go to. And this is a good example. So I think it's the last week of June. I should know that. I think it's the 19th of June to the 26th of June. It's called Drowning Prevention Week. And the RLSS, working alongside Swim England, Youth Sport Trust, AFP, and a number of different agencies, have made this a priority for young people. And they've produced some really good resources around this. And you can see in those various boxes. Just have a quick look through. It's got a huge connection across all aspects of the curriculum. So we've got PE activity cards, we've got PSHE, so we've got water safety cartoons, we've got water safety bingo, who to ask, story cards, etc., etc. Between the flags, so somebody mentioned about recognizing the different flags. Going across the other, we've got poems, making an advert for literacy, science, understanding the science of sinking and swimming. It's a huge variety of resources available through the RLSS as part of National Drowning Week. So I would encourage you to check that out when I send the link over, because water safety has to be the priority for our young people. Okay, and that leads into my final thoughts. I finished about 10 minutes earlier than I expected to, but I want to share with you my final thoughts. These are my key messages for you to take back to your swimming lessons next term. Pupils should progress in all areas of the PE subject content. So swimming is part of the national curriculum for swimming. It's not a bolt-on. It's integrated. It's totally embedded in the primary school PE curriculum. It has to be. It's not something that parents can pick and choose whether their children should do. If the parents are questioning it, work with them. Don't impose it on them. It's a partnership between you and the family. Okay? Safety over technique has to be the priority. Water safety is the priority, particularly this year when a lot of children have not been in a body of water for almost or over 2 years. And if they haven't swum this coming in the next term, it will be 2 years for a lot of children. We create opportunities that allow children to evaluate their own strengths and successes, so they need to have ownership of their progress, because PE and swimming is a holistic process. It's mind, body, and soul. Swimming has other areas you can deliver, so it has huge connections with other aspects of the curriculum. So you can get children measuring, you can children can be collecting things, which then can become letters, which they can spell words. You can do orienteering in the water. You can do so many things. Partnership is vital. Partnership between you as a school and other agencies, such as Sport Birmingham, such as AFPI, Youth Sport Trust, your local leisure centre, Swim England, Life Saving Society, Swimming Teachers Association, and most importantly, partnership between the school and the family. And the quality of teaching has to be the crux of everything, okay? It's the same in all subjects, both PE and other areas, but the quality of teaching is the most important part of that. Okay, so that takes me to my final slide, and I apologize for the photograph. That's me on holiday a couple of years ago, but does anybody have any questions?
Ian, there's a couple of questions just been on the chat box that we haven't been able to answer so far. If you wouldn't mind just picking up for.
Okay.
We've had a couple of questions about use of armbands and what your thoughts are on that. And secondly, around the P and Sport premium funding and reporting, what the bottom line is on that for year 6.
Right.
We'll go back. If you wouldn't mind covering those, thank you.
Right. I've just noticed that Charlene has written and said register for National Drowning Week is by the 14th of June, correct? So yeah, get yourself signed up for that. Martin, we do intensive 10-day sessions with the children historically do well with and make progress from armbands, and are all tested on back and pass if they scull the distances. That sounds okay, but I try and make it as fun and as holistic as possible, even if it's an intensive 10-day program. Make it fun. So going back to armbands, I personally think belts are better. I'm not a great fan of the inflatable armbands, but you now have some really good ones, which they're almost like a combination of neoprene and float material, and they start off as a 3, and you remove one at a time until eventually they've got none left, because they're designed kinesthetically so children can move their arms properly. The problem with the old inflatable ones is they don't work because they're too big and bulky. The challenge you have is that, discs. So that's what I'm thinking about. So the discs that go around the arm, they grip your arm, but there's 3 of them, and then it becomes 2, it becomes 1. But I would personally encourage you to use belts because they keep the core up. So the core or the center of gravity, which is somewhere around the belly button. What I would say about a belt is don't have one that goes all the way around. It either covers the back as far as the kidneys or it covers the front. But if it goes all the way around, then it becomes a challenge. The children will just bob along in the water. P premium, what was the question, Jane?
It's around reporting. I mean, obviously I support schools with this anyway, but your personal view, because some schools obviously are not going to be doing something that this year, they don't have figures on year 6 swimming. So what would you say is the guidance for reporting on swimming?
My understanding is that if you haven't been able to swim and there's a good chance you won't have swum for 2 years, then you need to write that in your report. The fact your children haven't swum, and you can only report. You can't, obviously, you don't make it up, and that's obvious. So because that would be fraud, and it doesn't help anyone. Because ultimately, when the reporting protocols came in, it was to find out what the state of the nation is. And if we start putting in the wrong information, Swim England and the government get the wrong impression. You can't report on swimming if it hasn't happened. You need to articulate in there the fact you've not swum in 2021 and you haven't swum in 2020. And you can only report on the last time your children went in the water. You could collect evidence from the parents, but as I said, I'm always a little bit reserved about how robust some of the information you get from parents actually is. They say they've got their rainbow badge, they've done all this, they've done all that, but when you actually see them in the water, it's not national curriculum stuff. I don't know if you would add anything else, Jane, because obviously you do this work as well.
I think, as you said, the honesty statement, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And just reporting what you know your figures are, whether it's year 4, year 5, 12 months ago, and then just making a statement and writing it in your report. This is where we're at, and Ofsted and the government will understand that. So the honesty, I'd say, that would be my main advice, as you've just said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Andrew's written a question. Would you recommend all pupils swimming at some point throughout an academic year? What are my thoughts on swimming intensively for a year in a specific year group? My reservation with the intensive block, it depends how long the block lasts, but I think I can give you an example of a school in Peterborough. Obviously, Peterborough is a Cambridgeshire town. There's some huge pockets of very challenging catchment areas where they do a block of 6 weeks in every year group. So they started in year 1, I believe. They do 6 weeks in year 1, 6 weeks in year 2, all the way through to year 6. But because of the nature of the families, those children will not go in water for the other 46 weeks a year. And so what they're finding in many cases, the children have not really made very much progress, even across 6 years, because they have 6 weeks of swimming where they make a bit of progress, 46 weeks where they don't go anywhere near any water. And when they start again the following year, they're no better than they were at the start of the previous year. And I think we need to be very sensible and very clever how we do this. And I've seen so many different models. For example, in Key Stage 1, don't call it swimming, call it aquatic physical education or core aquatic skills, just fun in the water, getting those things done. I think there's a way you can be quite clever. You can almost do top-up swimming from below. So you're topping the children, you're topping up their experience. So you're almost preparing them for their national curriculum swimming lessons in Key Stage 2. And you could use some of your residual underspend from 2020, when you didn't spend your PE premium because the kids weren't in school, for that top-up swimming. So we know a lot of children you've got limited data, as Samantha has said. This is where we need to have top-up swimming. Those children didn't swim in 2020. You've got a lot of children need to have top-up swimming to get them up to national curriculum levels. Use your money from last year that you didn't spend to fund that swimming now, because it's no longer national curriculum swimming, it's now top-up swimming. But I think we're also, as I said, I've seen some schools who top up from below. The other thing which I've done, I'm purposely not answering the question exactly how you want it, because there's a black and white answer. Other schools have used their PE premium to set up before school swimming clubs. I know some schools where they've got to deal with the local leisure centre, so the children are meeting them at the swimming pool, and they're having just recreational swimming lessons before school starts. So it's starting at 7:45 in the morning. They then get breakfast from their PE premium, and then they go to school. Other schools have it on their in their own shallow learner tank pool on the school playground. And I think they did it, and it started in about 2012, and they called it Breakfast with Becky, because Becky Adlington was the face of swimming. So kids were going in, PE premium was paying for it. It was children who were targeted, non-swimmers, children maybe who were coming to school without breakfast anyway. They were having a swimming session for half an hour, 20 minutes in the water. Parents were coming along as well. They were sitting on the side, watching, helping. Kids were then getting fed into lessons. Endorphins are up. The amount of impact, not only from swimming, but also on behavior and engagement, was huge. There's so many ways that you can be really creative and innovative in getting kids in the water. We're aiming to take year 6 in the summer. We just need to know if we can book. We've concerns about transport and changing rooms. Yeah, I think it's just you've got to work closely with your. You will have an outdoor education advisor in West Midlands. It's a statutory function of the local authority, so you must have someone who provides advice around educational visits and journeys. I would get in touch with them and talk to them about the protocols for taking children off site for swimming lessons with transport. Change rooms, talk to the leisure centre. What I'm finding in a lot of centres now is they've got protocols in place, so they're having one-way systems. They're managing it. They're making sure children are socially distanced in change rooms. Work with them. They take care of the risk assessment. You take care of the pastoral side of it, and work together. It's a partnership, as I go back to that penultimate slide I had. Okay, are there any other questions? I'm trolling through. I don't know if Jane, if you spotted any other questions.
That last question was asked about, what did you call that Key Stage 1 aquatic?
Well, I call it basically it's core aquatic skills, aquatic physical education. I did call it aquatic PE, but someone misheard me, or I think I called it PE in the water. I called it, but someone misheard me and thought I said something else. It's not PE in the water. I call it aquatic physical education. But yeah, so basically it's almost like pre-national curriculum swimming, getting children who can enter and exit, getting children comfortable with their feet on the bottom and getting comfortable with their faces in the water by playing games. And I've seen some wonderful games. Things like Rounders in the Water is a great game of children of all abilities. It's mixed ability, lots of children having lots of fun, just being confident and comfortable in a body of water. That's what it's all about. And then when they come to national curriculum swimming in year 2, in year 3 or in Key Stage 2, you've already covered those core aquatic skills. They're comfortable. They can get in and get out, because we don't want children getting into trouble. Okay, so it's aquatic physical education. Okay. Any other questions? I do apologise for the for losing me a couple of times. I don't know whether I'll need to go and check. Maybe my son has turned his switch on at some point and he took my Wi-Fi. I don't know. But
Okay. Any final questions for Ian? We're on 5 o'clock. So Ian, on behalf of James, myself, Sport Birmingham, and everyone, can I thank you? I felt that was very, very informative, very interesting. There's so much information there. As you said, it's such a key skill. There's still obviously concerns around schools and teachers and heads taking some, but hopefully you have answered some of those questions. As you said, we will send all the presentation and all the documents to everyone, but I found that very, very informative and excellent. So, and I'm sure everyone else did on the webinar as well. So thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for your support. As I say, we will send all the notes out and the presentation. Thank you, Ian, and that was excellent.
It's good. Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks all.